Another methodological choice you have in presenting your course is distance learning. This has become a much more popular approach as technology is overcoming some of the costs of having people in the classroom at the same time. It requires, of course, significant investment in computing technology. That said, it can be much less expensive than bringing people together in the same place at the same time. One question we might have is whether or not the learning that comes out of a distance learning situation is as deep as it would be face-to-face. In my experience, it's not. And so there's this trade-off between expense and depth of learning. Many people who are making policy decisions, both institutionally and from a public policy point of view, with regard to distance learning, may be thinking of learning primarily in a cognitive sense. That is, can they repeat on an exam a set of ideas? As you've learned from other segments, in my view, that's a relatively superficial kind of learning. It's not necessarily one that will be sustainable or indicative of the kind of behavior that graduates of that class will actually employ as they go forward. They may be able to talk about things that were encountered in a distance class, but will they actually implement them and be facile in applying them in real-world situations? So, although distance learning is gaining attention and it's based on technology, and the more technological advances we get, we can enhance and improve the quality of our distance learning. In some of our distance classes we use, for example, Adobe Connect, which means that you can see, the students can see you all over the world. We can have as many as 28, 30, 50 people in the class. We can see their names on the screen and call on them if they raise their hands. There's an active chat window at the same time. You can also be showing PowerPoint slide presentations while you're talking. So it's a wonderful tool, and it's not the same as being in the room. For example, in one of our courses, in our global executive MBA program, we have 5 distance classes before we have 10 residential classes. So those 5 distance classes, we haven't met the students before, we don't know who they are, where they're coming from, what experiences they've had in the past. You try to build that connection online, and then when they actually come in the room and you begin to get acquainted, it changes everything. So distance learning, I would say, is good for cognitive learning, level 2 kind of learning, less effective when you're trying to get deep, sustainable individual change at level 3, or even behavioral change at level 1. It's more difficult to do that through a distance channel than it is through a face-to-face avenue. There are some other tools, of course, video conferencing. A lot of corporations use video conferencing very effectively. Again, it requires heavy investment in the technology, particularly new devices now where you can see everyone, for example, around a conference table. And in that way you can save on the travel costs for going to Asia, South America, Africa, Europe, wherever your people might be. That said, in my view, it doesn't supplant, and it's not a substitute for, at some point, face-to-face relationship development. Distance learning can be used, I think, as a very effective tool in concert with some of the other methodologies that we've already talked about, particularly if you have a far-flung student body or a far-flung group of employees or participants, and you can marry the distance class with face-to-face experiences as well.